Alright, welcome to day 4. Today we're going to be taking a look at phrases. And before we get into the actual first phrase, what we're going to do is I want to kind of map out exactly what the phrases are and how they relate to one another. And that way you can see exactly how exactly at least how we're going to go through the process. So what I do is I'm going to do it as a tree map. So phrases, and the first one that we come to are prepositional. Okay, prepositional phrases can be divided basically into two. They can either be adjective or adverb. Now, some textbooks will call these adjective phrases or adverb phrases. I don't really like using that terminology because it does get sort of confusing when you get into other types of phrases that can also be adjectives, like participles or infinitives. And so what I'll just call it is it's a prepositional phrase that's used as an adjective, or a prepositional phrase that is used as an adverb, one or the other. That way you still at least know it's a prepositional phrase that starts out. Now, other than prepositional phrases, we're going to come to what's known as verbals. Now, verbals are verb forms that are used as something else, some other part of speech. There are 3 different kinds of verbals, and the first one that we're going to take a look at are called the participle. The second one is called the gerund. And the third is called the infinitive. Alright, and then we can break this down too. Participles will be adjectives. Gerunds are always nouns. Infinitives, now they can be more than one thing. They could be adjectives, they could be adverbs, or they could be nouns. So they could be one of those 3. And then another group of phrases are called the appositives. Alright, I guess I'll line that too. Appositives are just sort of out there on their own. You can't really break them down even further than what they are. They're very, very easy to understand, and so when we get to that point, you shouldn't have any problems with appositives. So this is our basic layout here. So we're going to cover from left to right basically. We're going to go from prepositional phrases to verbals in this order: participle, gerund, infinitive. And then we're going to cover appositives. Now I'm going to have to break this video up into multiple videos so that you can at least, we'll probably have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll have those 5. That way you don't have to cover the entire video. I'll just do one for each one. So first of all, let's cover the prepositional phrase. Alright. Now, you may be wondering, well, what is a phrase to begin with? Well, a phrase is a group of related words that's used as a single part of speech and that does not have a verb or its subject. Okay, because once you get into situations where it has its own subject and verb, well, then that becomes a clause, and that's different. But it is a group of related words, and so I want you to kind of think of this like, as I'm going through my sentence, let's say that these are words here, I'm going to come across this package here. And this package is going to have a label. And the label on the outside of the package determines how the entire package is being used. And then I might have a couple more words and a period. Alright, so this package works together as one unit, basically. Now I'm going to have several words in here, but I'm not so much worried about what's inside the package if I'm trying to label the outside. You don't want to do both. You don't want to label the outside of the package and looking inside the package at the same time. Okay, but phrases and clauses will be used in our sentence as a package deal. They will function as one part of speech, one thing. Okay, so think of it like a package here. Alright, so prepositional phrase. Okay, it says it includes a preposition, a noun or pronoun called the object of the preposition, and any modifiers of that object. Okay, so basically what I do when I'm labeling my sentences is I use parentheses like that, and I'll put those around the prepositional phrase. And so you need to remember that it will always start with a preposition and then will end with the object of the preposition, or OP. And so that's how I'll label it, as OP. So it starts with a preposition and it ends with the object of preposition. Now, I mentioned in a video earlier before on the 8 parts of speech, we need to make sure that you search for a list of prepositions and get very familiar with what they look like. They're usually short words, but not always. Your elementary teacher might have said that, it's anything a rabbit can do to a log. That gets, a pretty good majority of them, but it doesn't get all of them because some of those don't fit that criteria. But do remember that they show relationships between things. So look here, we got up the Amazon River. So like I'd put parentheses around there. So up is my preposition. Amazon River is my object of preposition. On a family trip, or on a memorable trip. Easy for me to say. So it starts with my preposition. It ends with the object of preposition. Okay, same thing here. By themselves, along with. That's one of those, longer prepositions. If you said a rabbit is along with the log, well, okay. Along with, and then you got family and me. Well, now I have 2 objects of the preposition. 2 of them. All right, so these are just examples. Notice what the prepositions look like. You got up, by, on, along with. Okay, they're going to be showing relationships between things. We should be able to start seeing sentences in chunks now by looking at these as package deals. So look at the number 1. So I got the first reports about the cause of these mysterious patterns appeared in 1978. All right, so as I'm searching through and I'm scanning through the sentence, I'm looking for these prepositions, and that's where it will start. So right here, I'm coming across about. And then you ask yourself about what or about who, and whatever answers that question is going to be your object of the preposition. So about what? About the cause. The next one is of what? Of these mysterious patterns. So patterns, I have to go all the way to that noun because the object has to be a noun or a pronoun. So of the patterns. Then I go a little bit further. I have in what? In 1978. That's where it will stop. All right, and according to our instructions, that's all we have to do right now. A little bit later on, we're going to label these and say how they're being used. But for right now, I'm just trying to show you how to find them. So number 2, we have in the middle, and then of a field. And then as we go across, we have in huge circles. Notice how all these prepositions, about, in, of, in. Well, apparently in is a preposition because it comes up a lot. Okay, number 3, some people believed the circles in the fields were made by extraterrestrials. Okay, again, they always start with that preposition, like by, and it's going to end with the object of the preposition. Extraterrestrials, or in the fields, or in circles, in 1978. Same pattern every time. Alright, so I mentioned before that prepositional phrases can be used as adjectives or adverbs. And so this entire phrase is going to function just like an adjective or just like an adverb. So this is where we have to kind of get our skills back and try to remember, well, what does an adjective do? How close is it to the word it modifies? What questions does it answer? And then same thing with an adverb. Adverbs have more flexibility, so they can be anywhere in the sentence that they really want to be, within reason. They're going to answer 6 questions: when, where, how, why, to what extent, under what condition. So I've got to remember those things whenever I'm starting to label these adjective and adverb phrases, or prepositions uses those. So let me show you what I mean here. So up here at the top, this one we're going to focus really just on the adjective phrase, or prepositional phrase used as an adjective. So these are going to answer what kind or which one. Okay, like an example, my favorite teacher for young readers is Beverly Cleary. Well, you say my favorite writer, my favorite writer, not teacher. My favorite writer, which writer? Obviously, yeah, it's a favorite writer. So favorite is an adjective. It's a one-word adjective. But what other kind of writer is it? What kind or which writer? It's one for young readers. So that also describes the writer. It says which one or what kind. Okay? I have read most of Beverly Cleary's books. If I blank that out and say, well, I have read most. I've read most of what? Like, what are we talking about? Most. Okay, well, of Beverly Cleary's books modifies that most, telling which one. Okay, which most. That sounds kind of weird, but it's the truth. All right, so let's get into some examples here. All right, so first we have to find it, then we're going to label it. All right, my favorite writer of science fiction is Ray Bradbury. All right, so of science fiction, we have to figure out, well, what is it trying to tell us? Well, of science fiction tells me what kind of writer it is. And yes, you could argue favorite writer, same thing as up top. Favorite is an adjective, but then so is of science fiction. So this entire phrase I'm going to be labeling as an adjective. The whole package is functioning as an adjective. This is where I'm labeling what's on the outside here. This is the outside label, just like on a box. And so that's going to be the adjective. I'm not looking on the inside of it right now. Okay, number 2. The pie needs 4 cups of fruit. Well, of and fruit. Of is my preposition, fruit's my OP. If I blank it out, I'm like, the pie needs 4 cups. So if I asked you, hey, go to the store because the pie needs 4 cups, would you really have any idea what to go get? Probably not. So we need more information about the cups. So you'd say, well, what kind of cups? Well, they're cups of fruit. Now you have the information that you need because of fruit describes the cups. Again, it fits all 3 criteria. It's right next to the word it modifies. It answers the question, what kind? And it's describing a noun. So all those 3 clues, just like as if you're a detective, when you're trying to figure out what this is supposed to be, you got to pull in together all the evidence that you could possibly find. Okay, number 3. A student from Mr. Levy's class won first prize. If I blank it out, okay, a student won first prize. We don't know which student you're talking about. So from Mr. Levy's class tells me what student we're talking about. So that describes the students. And it tells which one, which means that it is an adjective. I forgot to write adjective up here too. Okay, so that's how adjectives are going to work. Typically, these prepositional phrases are going to come after the word that they modify. All right, the next way that it can be used is an adverb. Okay, adverb phrases, or prepositional phrases used as adverbs, they tell how. Well, I do it a different way. When, where, how, why, to what extent, under what condition. And that's what that's basically saying right here. Alright, so typically they're going to modify the verb, but they don't have to. They can modify other things like adjectives or adverbs. So let me just show you. Okay, so it's still the same process. We got to find the prepositional phrase first. So like in number 1, Tara walked across the street. It's got to be across the street. Alright, so if I blank it out and say Tara walked. What does across the street tell us? What information does it provide us? In this case, it tells us where she walked. So here's 2 clues. Number 1, it answers where. Number 2, it modifies the verb walked, which means it's an adverb. That's how the whole thing is being used, as an adverb. Number 2, throughout next month, the band will perform at the fair. Okay, so throughout is a preposition and at is a preposition. Alright, well, what I have left over is just the band will perform. So what does throughout next month tell us? Well, the band will perform, there's our verb. Throughout next month tells us when they're going to perform. So that's an adverb. At the fair, what does that tell us? That tells us where they're going to perform. So since it answers where, that's also an adverb. Okay, so that's basically how it works. You just go through each sentence, find your prepositional phrase, and then ask yourself some simple questions. Okay, I'm going to do one last one with you, number 3. So before Sunday, please clean your room. Before Sunday. Alright, please clean your room. Well, clean is my verb, so what information does this tell us about that verb? Well, it tells us when. Well, when is one of our adverb questions, so that makes this an adverb because that's what it answers. All right, another point of interest here is like, before Sunday, it's a prepositional phrase, it has a comma after it. The rule that I typically use is that if a prepositional phrase starts your sentence and it's 3 words long or longer, then you need to have a comma. If it's less than that, say 2 words or so, then it's optional. I mean, you can, it just depends on if you want that pause there or not. Okay, so that's why they got that comma there, is because they felt like it needed to be there. All right, so that's the adverb phrase, or the prepositional phrase used as an adverb. That's how to do it. Next video is going to be getting into our verbals, our verbal family. So hope to see you then.